Earth, what we know, is the most amazing part of life, mostly because we don't have any other options. Home to some amazing things, like nature, life, cockwaffles, porn, but all those pale in comparison to the greatest invention of mankind. I would argue it's better than sliced bread. The world's most iconic smash hit turned irrelevant fad, Skylanders. Now, despite this series taking place in a different world entirely, Earth is one of the 8, and later 10, elements in said game. Now, why is a humanoid dragon telling you about this element in particular? Well, it has something to do with a little thing I like to call Dino-Rang. Easily the climax of mankind. No two doubts about that, thank you. Now, I'm sure you already know lots about this used to be titan of a series, but just to refresh your memory, and to better format this video essay, Skylanders is a dungeon-crawling action-adventure series of games where you use real-world toys, which you have to buy in real-world stores, and place them on this neat little pad, dubbed the Portal of Power. Now, once you have these figures, you can place them on said portal, and the character you place down appears inside of a video game! Almost makes the credit card debt worth it. Almost. The first Skylanders game in the series, Skylanders Spyro's Adventure, introduced a variety of 32 playable figurines, so of course to get the game out there they had to make a variety of characters for a variety of people to buy them and enjoy their purchase, which means... bring on the sex appeal! Oh yeah! That would be my catchphrase if I were a Skylander. Dino-Rang is a dinosaur so badass he combines the two strongest forces in the universe, boomerangs and an Australian accent. Yes, that's right. For the next number of minutes, I will be discussing the character of Dino-Rang, his backstory, moveset, and lots of other things too specific to explain right now. Welcome to Spike's Paradise. Every hero has his or her story to tell, so what about Dino-Rang? Surely a mythical being such as himself should have an equally legendary story to tell, right? Well, you would be more than correct to have that assumption. Let's see what the wiki has to say about him. Dino-Rang was part of a tribe specializing in boomerangs. This tribe being filled with skilled hunters, and a neato thing about this tribe, it was in a world very far from Skylands. So how did he become a Skylander? Well, it was once upon a fateful night when Dino-Rang was enjoying his slumber, until a strange portal came from under him while he laid rest, transporting him into another world, this world being Skylands. Does that make Dino-Rang an isekai? Well, since all Skylanders were sent to Earth, that technically makes all Skylanders an isekai. That means Dino-Rang got isekai twice. Well, there's some food for thought. Anyways, onto the personality. Apparently Dino-Rang is very calm and collective, but will lose his temper if you mistake him for a dragon, which is very interesting because that guy literally has Dino in his name. Like, how much of an absolute bumbling idiot do you have to be to mistake him for a dragon? Bitch, do you see any wings? But, of course, since he was taken away from his home, he is very homesick of said place of origin. Poor thing. On a more positive note, let's go on to his figure. So beautiful. Now, lots of Skylanders get reposes, where they get released a second time but with a different pose and cool new abilities. And some figures get sweet variants where they are basically the same but with a cool color variation. Guess what Dino-Rang got? Fucking nothing! How could this motherfucking rock appear in 3 games, but Dino-Rang only gets to appear in 1? This is bullshit. Like, are you actually telling me you could choose between a rock dragon, an A-team impersonating shark boxer, God himself, an angelic gem dragon, whatever the fuck Slobbertooth is, and an anthropomorphized scorpion, and you still pick this fucking cluster of rocks? Like, what even the fuck are you? What kid wants this more than an Australian dinosaur with boomerangs? What the fuck?
Oh, but Prison Break is important because his hands were used for the basis of Trap Team's traps.
Fuck you! The Dive Bomber was used for the 9 dimensions of the basis of Imaginary Sensei's. Bitch, do you worship the Dive Bomber too? Because I don't fucking think so! Sorry, I need therapy. Dinorang did actually receive variations. Only 2 though. One of these was his elite version, which is the same as his standard version, but 3 times more powerful. But unfortunately, I don't own this version of him. You could probably tell since I haven't taken over the world yet. And he also got a silver chase variant, which is so rare you can't even find listings of him. But this version is literally the exact same as the standard version, no stat differences, nothing. I would have loved a Series 2 version of him that had his armor on, that would have been lovely. But Skylanders was discontinued, so I guess there's no hope wishing in what could have been. As it stands, Dinorang's figure is amazing. Lots of Skylanders from SSA have bland poses that just feel like they're standing still, compared to the later games where their poses feel like they are in the middle of some action. But Dinorang is a really good pose for a Skylander from SSA, and its figure quality is also really good for a Skylander from that game. Obviously not as good as some other Skylanders from Giants, but he does look better than a few noteworthy examples of figures from Giants.
By noteworthy examples, I really just mean Sprocket.
Now that I've told you lots about things in our physical plane of reality, let's see how he stacks up in a virtual world, and if he is good in-game. Most Skylanders have the same primary attack, usually something like a basic punch, a beam, some sort of projectile. Sure, some characters have a bit more to it than that, and some primary attacks interact with their other combat options, but those are basically the main 3. Now what does Dino-Rang have?
I'll give you a hint. Hint, it's in the name.
I've already mentioned on multiple occasions that he uses boomerangs, so I assume making you guess isn't necessary in the slightest. Dinorang uses boomerangs! Oh! Shocker. Despite him using boomerangs, it functions like any other long-ranged item, just with a longer reload time and more damage. Speaking of which, this guy has nice damage. I mean, obviously there are characters who do higher damage, but since this guy is long-ranged, it's very nice. Especially when you consider his third attack, which I will get to later. If you hold his first attack, you can control the boomerang, giving it extra range. It's good for aiming, I suppose, but I never use his attack. How I prefer to play as him encourages more claustrophobic environments, so using increased range is practically useless to me. His second attack creates a shield of boomerangs that surround him. This also does nice damage, and can hit multiple enemies at once. This is a shorter range, so it is best used in tight spaces where enemies surround you. It certainly helps that this will push enemies back. It's also called a boomerang shield because it may deflect some enemy projectiles. But easily one of my favorite attacks to use efficiently, is his third attack, where he summons some stone fist traps. Because once you have placed these, enemies will come towards you and fall into said trap, doing a considerable amount of damage. Heck, sometimes they get hit by multiple stone fists in a row. If you play as them in Swap Force or any game after that, they will be launched into the air, which is a major convenience. But now let's go on to the tough decisions, the upgrade paths, essentially gaming's most simplistic form of the skill trees. Let's check out this grand Boomerang Master path. Now this path improves your boomerang attacks. Lovely. After all, it is in his name. Well, hate to tell you, but perhaps stronger boomerangs isn't in your best interest when picking Dinorang's upgrade paths. Don't fret, I will explain soon. Now, the first upgrade you receive gives you increased damage for boomerangs. Now, this is a very common thing for upgrade paths to have, but it isn't the most creative form of an upgrade, which is fine. After all, who doesn't love having stronger boomerangs? Having a greater amount of damage is always good. But since Dinorang's only major game role was in SSA, the easiest game in the series, well, that just makes this whole thing confusing. His second upgrade, Dancing Boomerangs, allows his boomerangs to bounce off of walls and enemies. Personally, this barely even worked when I played as him. I tried throwing boomerangs at walls and it never bounced at enemies, and even when I'm hitting enemies, it never bounced off of them. When it does, it just hits multiple enemies at once, which is fine, but having your base attack hit multiple enemies at once kind of just devalues your second attack, since that's the entire point of his boomerang shields, you know? Which is even worse because his third upgrade path makes his boomerang shield do even more damage and last longer. I mean, again, doing more damage is always much appreciated, but there's no cooldown. So why is increasing the longevity of it useful? To be honest, during gameplay it just makes him less fun. Which, I mean, he's Dino-Rang, you can't make him not fun, but they just make him worse. No. Well, that upgrade path was disappointing. Like, honestly, the most it did for me was increase the effect of existing attacks without adding anything substantial. And makes me question the use of his second attack. Talk about an awful upgrade path. Dinorang is still a really good Skylander if you pick this path. He is just slightly less fun to play as. I mean, Dinorang is still Dinorang, which makes him an amazing Skylander regardless. But putting that dumpster fire to the side, let's move on to my preferred playstyle of our flawless dinosaur with boomerangs. Everyone, it's time for the Earthen Avenger path. Now, this is where my true love for Dinorang comes from. This is where he came from an average Skylander to something I have an everlasting passion for. The very 3 upgrades that makes him the absolute beast that he is. The first upgrade allows you to summon 4 stone fist traps at once. This is my favorite of his attack's cues, so making that stronger is much better. I mean, now multiple enemies coming at you will basically all get the sweet taste of stone fist. This makes his attack vastly more fun to use, but I'll be honest, it is kind of disappointing that it doesn't increase the damage. Oh well, I'll take what I can get. His second upgrade gives him a 6 set of armor, as if Dinorang wasn't attractive enough. Enemies will have a tougher time hitting you with this 6 set of gear. Not only does this make you look completely, utterly, and undoubtedly awesome, but it also gives you a massive boost in armor stats, a godsend in nightmare mode. And come on, making Dinorang have almost comically high armor stats is lovely. The main reason I prefer this over basic damage boost is mainly because, well, giving the character cosmetic differences in an upgrade path requires more effort than a basic stat boost. And it's also much less common of a thing for upgrade paths to have. I'm pretty sure nearly every Skylander has an upgrade path that gives you increased damage. But armor? That's not an everyday occurrence in the realm of Skylanders upgrades. Now, we have reached the climax of our journey, the third and final upgrade of the Earthen Avenger path. And don't worry, this path ends with a boom if you catch my drift. Now, remember those stone fists I've been telling you about? Surely so. And you know those boomerangs? Yes, the very boomerangs Dinorang uses to attack enemies. Well, let's combine the two. From now on of purchasing this upgrade, any enemy killed, I mean defeated, with those luxurious boomerangs of his spawns a stone fist trap in their place. It even works on chompies, so you can create even more traps to punish your enemies for existing than ever before. No extra steps required. This has to be the best timeline, one where you take the next logical step and choose Dinorang's Earthen Avenger path. I mean, it goes without question. The abilities these give you are simply better, and the stat boost given by the armor makes you look really cool. Cool as hell, in fact. Truly, you are delusional if you think the other upgrade path is superior. No other explanation, thank you. Well, now that we've discussed his standard attacks and upgrade paths, what other things in his moveset do we have left to discuss? Mighty fine question, sir. Or ma'am, I don't care. We have his most expensive upgrade. Easily the most climactic, but not really as good as the other ones, just kind of a nice quality of life improvement. With this upgrade purchased, you unlock the ability to pick up foods and coins using your boomerangs. And since these are long ranged, well, this can be really useful in situations where you need recovery, but have your plate full from all the enemies being cramped down your throat. I'll be honest, it's a pretty good soul gem, and I'm glad we have this. If only I could pick up food using boomerangs in real life. Regardless, I hope this encouraged someone out there to bust out their Dino-Ring again, give them a second chance, or hell, even buy a new Dino-Rang. He only goes for a couple of dollars online. He rarely goes for anything over $10, so it's not like you are making a big investment by getting him. I actually first got Dino-Rang from an EB Games used, or GameStop depending on where you're from. For the longest time I didn't even play as him. It wasn't until I started replaying Skylanders Giants earlier this year when I started to use him. Thus, this Skylander isn't even nostalgic to me yet, so I have virtually no bias on him yet. And for the Prison Break stands who might be offended at what I said, I don't actually have any problems with him. He's just an average Skylander who is way too overrated. He is still perfectly fine and perfectly usable though. Oh, and by the way, since I don't own any capturing devices, I ended up using footage from a channel called the Long Plays Archive. Footage used will be linked in the description. This is actually my first time trying to make a YouTube video, so I don't actually have any other content up at the moment, unless you count 20-second recordings I did on my phone, which I do not. This video is basically a pilot episode to see how I can handle YouTube video editing, so I don't know what other videos I'll be making in the future. I mainly do digital art, hence the dragon character that's been talking to you for the past 16 or so minutes. I don't post a lot of my art at the moment, but who knows, maybe that'll change soon. I have a Twitter, which I have posted some art on if you'd like to check that out. Again, linked in the description. I think that's all that has to be said for now. Thanks for investing your time into this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I guess... thanks. Yeah. Later.